Hello, I'm Aki Kareem, and I'm just going to do a real quick sort of video on my take of this massive fight between Kell Brook and Gennady Golovkin on the 10th of September at the O2 Arena. Before I get into this, let me just say this is not a video critiquing anyone. I've got full respect for any fighter that gets in the ring, so it's just an opinion, so it is what it is. Let's get straight into this then. Let's talk about the weight issue first. I mean, some people have come up to me recently saying it's not that big a jump for Kell Brook. He's a big guy. He's a natural 160 fighter. I have to disagree with this. Until you have fought at 160, you are not a 160 fighter. Don't confuse walking around, at 175, that sort of thing, for being a natural middleweight. He's campaigned at 147 his entire career, so for me, he's a 147 fighter. With that comes a lot of different connotations as well. I mean, he's only taken the power of fighters at 147. And granted, he's taken the power quite well. He was rocked badly in the Carson Jones fight, but we'll let him off on that one because, from what I hear, he was physically making himself sick to make the weight, and there were some issues there. But really, who's the biggest puncher he's fought so far? I mean, you'd have to say it's Sean Porter. And Sean Porter wasn't even really seen as a big puncher until he fought Paulie Malignaggi. Since in the fight with Brook, where he lost a narrow decision, he hasn't actually knocked anyone out. He's gone 12 rounds with Broner, 12 rounds with Thurman. So let's put it into context. Kell Brook is a 147 fighter. He's taken the power of other 147 pound fighters, but not somebody with the vicious sort of thudding power of a Golovkin. He's not even taken the power of somebody at 154. Now, obviously, he's been sparring with Liam Smith, the 154 champ, and that's really going to give him some confidence having taken those shots. But Gennady Golovkin, again, is heavier than that, and he's a bona fide puncher. You've also got to think to yourself, speed. Kell Brook is a fast guy, fast hands, fast footwork, good balance, good counter punching. But there's no good having the speed if you don't carry the power with you to keep a fighter, a marauding style fighter like Golovkin, who cuts the ring off exceptionally well. Look what happened to Amir Khan. He moved up to 155 to fight Canelo. He was the faster fighter, but he didn't have anything in his arsenal to keep Canelo off him, and you all know what happened in that fight. I do actually think Brook holds a shot better than Amir and is a more solid fighter and a compact fighter, but there's no use in having a speed advantage if you can't keep your opponent off. And I think Golovkin, he's so good at cutting off the ring, and he punches so hard that it will be difficult. But from what I'm hearing, Kell Brook is punching hard in the gym at his newfound weight of 160. And look, there are some benefits of him going up to 160. I mean, he's going to be more hydrated. He's going to feel more fueled for his training sessions. He's not going to have to skip meals, watch his fluid intake, things like that. That psychologically could give him a lot of confidence. But, I don't see it being big enough an advantage to beat someone like Golovkin. And this is no disrespect to Kell Brook. I seriously respect this guy for going up and fighting a guy that everybody's trying to avoid. So it's not, like I say, it's with no disrespect I say all this to Kell Brook. Kell Brook does have power. He's proven that. He's looked sensational in his last three fights. But let's put it into context a little bit. His last three fights were against Jojo Dan, Frankie Gavin, and Kevin Bizier. And I'm not going to lie, before he fought Kevin Bizier and Jojo Dan, I didn't actually know who they were. So let's just put it into context. I mean, he did look sensational. He did what was required of him. His precision was great, his accuracy, his timing. When he went into finisher mode, he was brutal. But put it into context, I personally think Golovkin could beat all three of those fighters in the same night, and that's no disrespect to them. It's just how good I think Golovkin is. You can also argue, though, that Golovkin hasn't fought anyone, and that's a good argument. Technically, the best person on Golovkin's resume is Kell Brook. but it's not for want of trying. He's basically calling everyone out and everyone's running from him, apart from Kell Brook. If you look at the manner of Golovkin's victories, though, the way he has dealt with big middleweights, people like Dominic Wade, he just fought. I mean, obviously, he wasn't an elite caliber fighter, but he was undefeated and he was big. And Golovkin sent him around the ring like a ragdoll. The way he dispatched of people like Matthew Macklin with ferocious body shots, he cut the ring off beautifully, and he just wiped him out with that body shot. Even though he didn't sort of look sensational against Martin Murray, if you speak to Martin Murray after the fight, he was saying he hurt me with every shot, and this is a big middleweight. The shot he hit Curtis Stevens with, I'll never forget that. The first one that put him down, the look on Curtis Stevens' face, it looked like he was shocked at the power. Some of the shots he hit Willie Monroe Jr. with, very slick, big, southpaw, good mover. He just bided his time. Don't forget, Golovkin has got 300 and something amateur fights, a fantastic pedigree. He's well schooled. He's not just a hitter. He's a cerebral fighter. He does things in there that's very subtle. He's actually a pressure fighter that can counterpunch. That's the worst sort of fighter you can get in there with. Look, to cut a long story short, because I want to keep this fairly short, in conclusion, Kell Brook, brave, big respect to him. He's a solid fighter. He's an elite fighter. So I don't think he's going to get blown out in a couple of rounds or anything. He's a really good boxer. But if you're going to jump up in weight from 147, to 160, without having any sort of mid-range challenge in there, sort of like a fight at 154, or even a tune-up fight at 160, you're asking for trouble when you're going there against someone like Golovkin. I see Golovkin winning this fight by a stoppage, and I'd be surprised if it goes more than 8 or 9 rounds. If I had to put my mortgage on it, I'd say something like round 7 or 8, Golovkin gets the stoppage. But this is not taking anything away from Kell Brook. He's just stepping up and one step too far. I rate him against any fighters in the 147 pound division. I think he beats them all except for Thurman, which I think is a very good fight. I'd have to think about it a bit more. But for now, I think this one's a fairly easy one to call from my end. You guys, and I'm sure everyone has different opinions on this, but for me it's a Golovkin win, a big win, by stoppage. But I respect Kell Brook. So, there you go.